Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-0. This is a double feature Twitch recap from last week and the week before. First, starting off obviously with the week before, where we were returning to the James May as it made its approach to Neptune, and we can just kind of watch the planet grow larger and larger here in a very, very, very sped up view. We're going to cover this entire live stream in the course of about 5 minutes or so. So if the camera angle is a little disjointed, I do apologize. The plan here was to just skim through the very upper atmosphere of Neptune and hopefully propulsively capture into an orbit. That was not part of the original mission plan for this flight. It was just supposed to do a flyby, gather some science, radio it all home, and then call it mission complete. But we had quite a bit of extra Delta V after departing Saturn. This craft launched in the 1977 awesome window of awesomeness, and along with its sister ship, the Clarkson, which is now captured in a Uranus orbit. The James May here brought along with it a little hamster to try to do an atmospheric science, although we lack the logistical abilities to take care of that. We did make a very solid approach through just the very upper atmospheres, and since we were going to be out of comm range, we decided to transfer as much data into the probe core as we could while we were out of comms. And there is our AJ-10 light. It was way, way, way late. Unfortunately, I did forget the lessons learned from the Clarkson in its insertion around Uranus, and should have lit that engine about 10 minutes prior, and I also should have dipped way deeper into the Neptunian atmosphere than this craft did, because it had like 10 or 15 minutes of fuel to burn through in its attempt to capture into an orbit. I also messed up the timing on the radio ins, so I don't think we actually collected any data from inside Neptune's atmosphere, very unfortunately, however. So I'll just kind of give you the long and short of it. As we very swiftly depart Neptune in a what has proven to be an extraordinarily futile attempt to capture ourselves into orbit, had this maneuver been executed better, we'll just say better, we absolutely had the Delta V to insert into orbit, but we're so far off our efficiency marker at this point that it was ultimately futile, and we fell just a couple hundred meters per second shy of actually achieving orbit around Neptune, leaving it still kind of a mystery. And its moon Triton, which we have yet to fly by, which is other than one or two moons of Saturn, remain the mysteries of the solar system to us. So it was with much regret that we do have to retire this mission and call it on paper, initially, it's a success. It did its flyby. It got out there extraordinarily cheap, but it was not able to capture, and it was not able to do a Triton flyby, very unfortunately. So with no fuel left, it's just left to drift aimlessly, and I will just kind of leave you with this very beautiful exit shot as it flies rather helplessly away. Almost a family photo, much like our flyby of Neptune or Pluto the week prior, but moving swiftly along. This brings us into the 3-year Kerb-A-Versary stream, which this one officially marks my 3rd year in running this series here on YouTube. And what a fantastic 3 years it has been. It simultaneously feels like it has been not at all any length of time, and it's such a staple of my daily life that it feels like I've been doing it forever. So very quickly, I just want to say thank you to everybody who comes out and watches these videos and cheers me on in the comments or criticizes me in the comments. I love all of you all the same. This has been an absolutely fantastic adventure, and I'm so glad all of you are here to come experience this with me, even though I'm in the most outdated version of Kerbal Space Program on the internet. We're still chugging along. Thank you. I can't say it enough. Thank you. Anyway, on to the mission at hand, now that this clip is halfway done. This is the Origami 4T. It is bound for Saturn's moon of Titan. It has been in transit for the better part of a decade and has now finally made its SOI change, or rather is about to make its SOI change. There it was, just as I said that, to Saturn. And its propulsive capture is coming up soon, and then it will make its inclination change to put it on course for Titan. We'll probably do a gravity assist pass or two before inevitably propulsively capturing around Titan, where we can deploy our origami glider. This does carry a lot of science experiments that we haven't hauled anywhere outside of low Earth orbit, and it's mostly because they're all designed to be used in low orbit of something. Signals, intelligence radar, recon camera, etc., just to make sure that there is in fact no life on Titan. Our previous Titan lander mission detected something weird, I suppose, thus getting the budget approved for this absolutely ridiculous mission with its ridiculous goals to cover multiple biomes, both orbitally and through the atmosphere by way of this glider. But with its current waypoint complete, we'll have to move swiftly along yet again. Lots of things that were covered in this live stream. We kind of jumped around a whole lot, but we are turning our attention now to our Charlie resupply pod that has made its SOI change to Venus. This is of course bound for our ostrich station in kind of medium Venus orbit. It's low on one side, not quite high on the other, but if we want to ever be able to bring a crew to this station, we absolutely positively need at least one of these two Charlie resupply pods to make a successful capture into Venus orbit, and then Aero break itself into a lower orbit to perform rendezvous and docking with the station. The station, as it sits right now, has almost no life support supplies on board, so one of these Charlie pods will become kind of a fixture of the station itself. Probably will remain a permanent installation, as one of these will support 6 Kerbals for the better part of 4.5 years, which basically means one pod is about one mission's worth of life support, food, water, and oxygen for a crew of 6. That will probably be deployed here upwards of 2.5, maybe as long as 5 years. It really depends on if we can get both pods docked. We launched one as a primary and a second as a backup, just in case things went all cattywampus on us. And you know, it never hurts to have more life support supplies than you think you'll actually need. So if we can get both of them docked to the station, then hey, cool, why not? So currently we are making several little corrections to our orbit to bring us in nice and low. And although it was intended for a aero capture maneuver, this thing actually has enough fuel left in this B upper stage to propulsively capture. We're looking at like 1,300 meters per second for a capture burn. And of the 15 or 1600 left available to us, I think that's a pretty happy circumstance. So we're actually just going to go ahead and run with it and go ahead and warp on in, and hopefully this HG3 engine will not fail, although it is being pushed very close to its maximum runtime per test flight. So if the Kerbal gods be with us today, then this engine will complete its burn time, run through the remainder of its fuel, and capture this life support pod safely into orbit. We will have to aero brake it into a lower orbit before we can perform docking, which is why we're keeping the heat shield. But for all of that, I will turn you over to old me. I'll say only one of these pods is, I guess, mission critical hardware. We have to get one of them to the station before we can send a crew, but once one of them is there, we are cleared to send a crew. Alright, and coming out of time warp. Ullage. Engine still very stable. 3, 2, 1, ignition. Whew. And after months in space, we have a good light on our HG3, and we are go for orbital insertion. No, I'm probably not launching the crew today. We've got a long way to go for that Venus window to hit, and a lot of other necessary things to do in between now and then. That's probably worth a screenshot. Really weird, the refraction of the atmosphere here at Venus. What is our altitude looking like? 272. We're coming down to 190. We should be A-okay. Should be coming up on captured here any second now. We have to stage. This whole plan falls apart. There she is, captured. Yes! Hooah! That's one. We're just going to go ahead and burn this stage to completion. Or until the engine fails, whichever, you know, no big deal. Nicely done, B upper stage. Super useful of you. And flame out. Sweet. Kill that maneuver node. Add maneuver. We just need to set the alarm. Add alarm. Yep, 4 hours. We'll add it anyway. I just need to see what our next inbound flight time is looking like. Wow. Lima, dude, how the hell? Yeah, it would seem our Lima pods are either not where I left them, or I did a fantastically bad job of putting them on course. I don't remember it being so terrible, but I did have to take a much closer look. We'll get to that later on. First step is the next thing to make its pass to Venus is our second Charlie resupply pod, which is on a collision course. So I did a fantastic job with this one, and a terrible job with absolutely everything else. So, you know, par for the course, I suppose. This correction is large enough that we will just go ahead and use our HG3 main engine to push ourselves into not a collision course with Venus, which would be beneficial to the health of this resupply pod that does not need to be on the surface of Venus, but rather in orbit of it. We've got the Delta V to spare. It's only like 100 and some change, but runtime being our biggest concern, because this burn is probably best made at absolute minimum throttle. But we'll go ahead and get our periapsis at Venus into a safe range, and then plot our node for capture. And we do, in fact, still have the Delta V to handle that. So very quickly, we will jump out and check on one of our Lima resupply pods. These carry kerosene and liquid oxygen designed to refuel the Chestnut vehicle in situ so that it can make its transfer back to Earth. That vehicle, of course, is designed to propulsively capture around its target, which was a safety measure designed exactly for this mission around Venus, and the fact that it is entirely too heavy to even attempt an Aero capture at Mars. Unfortunately, both Lima pods need about a kilometer per second of Delta V correction to even put them in anywhere close to Venus, if they had any hope of being able to aero brake or aero capture, it is well beyond the fuel reserves of either vehicle at this point. So, very unfortunately, we're going to have to call both of these fuel trucks mission fail. There's not a whole lot we can do other than just leave them in a heliocentric orbit and hope that maybe they'll come back around to hit Venus again next time, and maybe we can make a correction, a small one, at an orbit or two out, and hopefully be able to get some kind of success out of those resupply pods. Switching back to the Charlie pod, we're actually making a correction at our apoapsis to put ourselves in a nice parking orbit. I did not intend on doing a bunch of aero braking passes with these things during the live stream, as it's just as boring for me as it is for everybody watching. And there was just a lot of logistical things to get to, so we decided to just place them in a safe parking orbit and deal with the logistical side of it later. We would leave some fuel in the B upper stage to push it into Venus's atmosphere and make a clean disposal of all of our empty fuel tanks, seeing as how they're just kind of stuck here for the moment. So Kerbal alarm clock, as always, being annoying, but we did have in fact enough time to warp around and make sure that this B upper stage pushed itself into Venus's atmosphere and achieved complete destruction. So at least we got to see something explode today. No spoilers. Maybe there's more. I'm not gonna ruin that for you. But as we come around into the daylight side, just at dawn, we start to hit the atmosphere. Oh, wait, that's right. We turned that on because all of the vessel switching. Poof. Oh, wow, those are pretty close in their orbit. You let me switch the stuff, KSP? Maybe. Started you Lox Bomb Titan. Catch the whole moon on fire. And with all of that cleaned up, we would jump out to our second reserve Charlie resupply pod as it starts to make its approach to Venus. This is the one that had to make the correction because it was on a impact course, which was bad for the health of the snacks stored inside. That's what mission control tells me. But conveniently, also right around dawn would be lighting our HD3 main engine to make capture, and I'll turn you over to old me. 3, 2, 1. Ullage. Still very stable. Oh, good. Thanks. Thank you. And ignition. Why don't we have any of our autopilots over here? Oh, we do. They're just not showing up. That's cool. That's extra cool. See, now this just looks weird. No big deal. Alright, I did set the alarm for the origami, yes. And I think, actually, after this makes orbital insertion 56 days. I don't know if I really want to push out that long, but that means we have 56 days we can do anything else we want. Lack of buttons. I know, they're there, but they're not there. Because of scatter? No? They're... okay. Refresh the menu. There they are. Good enough for me. I'll take it, Welcome back, buttons. Good to see you. There's our whiplash-inducing camera change and telling us that we have in fact been captured into Venus orbit. Let's go ahead and let this engine burn to completion. Will I still be here in 3 years? Me or the buttons? Me? Probably. In what capacity, I don't know. I mean, as sad as it is to me, like, this weekly stream is almost my only video game time all week, which is why YouTube episodes have slowed down so much. It's really hard being able to find time to record an episode, let alone edit it and get it up to YouTube. And were this not like a staple of my weekly endeavors. And there's shutdown. Let's check our orbit. I think we should be quite a bit higher than our other one. Yeah, not bad. So what the hell is that, and why did it not burn up in the atmosphere? That's fun times. Add maneuver. So that's all for that thing. I guess we can go ahead and warp around up top and get rid of this. And so with our second successful capture burn of the evening, and 2 for 2 on Charlie pods, but 0 for 2 on Lima pods, we would go ahead and warp this thing out to its periapsis. It's both of these are on a pretty good relative inclination with ostrich station. Their next maneuver, of course, will be to correct that inclination and then start to break themselves into a lower orbit. But the very first step here is, as previously, jettison the B upper stage after we move the resupply pod itself into a safe parking orbit, because we have lots of other logistical like things to take care of today. So like I said, we will not be doing any aero braking, just lots of maintenance and such. But we would go ahead and use quite a fair bit of thruster fuel, which we really shouldn't need that much for form docking. Of course, that is very, very dependent on the aero braking passes going smoothly, and there's absolutely no guarantee of that. We've done aero capture and we have done deorbit at Venus. I don't think we've ever done gradual aero braking passes here like we have at Mars, but caution will win the day. We'll just come in real light, and we'll see exactly how much braking we get at a very high altitude. If we have to do it over many, many, many passes, that's exactly what we'll do. One of these is mission critical. But Kerbal Alarm Clock would interrupt our fun in waiting for explosions for our Jasper mission, which is, of course, an atmospheric science explorer for Jupiter itself. We don't really have any plans to do any more flybys of Jupiter's moons. We've kind of scratched that one off our list, but we don't have any real data from Jupiter's atmosphere. We did launch a previous mission that carried some hamsters, I guess is what we're calling them now, for Jupiter atmosphere exploration. But, well, I screwed that mission up, and neither atmospheric probe was able to radio home any data. They both made passes through high Jupiter atmosphere. Neither of them burned up in the atmosphere like I expected them to. They did have heat shields, but they were out of comms range, and their battery was dead before they could actually radio any data back successfully. So we do still have some science to be gained here at Jupiter, and I fully intend on getting as much of it as I possibly can. So the first part of Jasper's mission, now that we are in Jupiter SOI, is to adjust its periapsis to something reasonable. We're actually going to attempt to aero capture here at Jupiter, which we are not even sure is possible, considering the speeds at which you will encounter Jupiter are absolutely insane, and a lunar-rated heat shield is the best we can do. But we figured maybe if we keep the mass kind of down and enough provisions, and after figuring it all out and plotting this node, we only need to shed like 400 some odd delta V to make capture around Jupiter a thing. And being able to prove the viability of doing it with a heat shield and Aero capture is very, very valuable to us. And really, the only way to find out if it's possible or not is to just jump in and do it. So, if this mission fails, of course, then we'll know. But you have to try, I suppose, is the lesson here. So as we are making our approach, we're going to adjust our periapsis out quite a bit further. The atmospheric height at Jupiter is something like 1.5 million meters. So we're going to just try to very lightly graze our way through at about 1.43 million meters. So we will pump fuel forward into our ballast tank just to make sure that we can maintain balance and keep the heat shield facing into the wind. Not doing so would certainly end this trip real fast. We've already radioed in the command to retract the RTG booms. We've got our action group set up, so hopefully we can capture some data as we make a pass through the atmosphere. And as we get in good and close, we'll go ahead and orient ourselves to prograde. Roll control is a little lacking on this spacecraft, but I will turn you over to old me for a live commentary during the pass. Here we go. Roll control to Major Tom. All right, we're starting to get some data back here. Reset. Multispectral analysis from just above Jupiter's equatorial bands. We'll keep that. Reset. I'll just say reset a lot because we've gotten all this stuff before. We're going to have to start pumping data into our return pod. There's our retraction command. Film return camera. Yes. 200. We'll keep that. I said keep that. Biological sample. How many do we have? No, we're going to reset that. Reset. Come on. I don't have much time to do this. KSP. If you could please not give me a heart attack right now. Science. Ranger block 2. Film return. Transfer. Transfer. Okay, good. Those two experiments are secure-ish. 3 minutes from periapsis, we are still not atmospheric, so we'll just go ahead and warp through this. Real spacecraft don't have some dude on the controls handling their entry. It's all pre-programmed. Yeah. Is that a thunk? Are we atmospheric? I believe, sir, that we are. Still accelerating, though. 71 kilometers per second. Let's go. We just need to lose 400 meters per second. Just 400 measly meters per second. Let's see how well these antennae do sticking out into things. 55 seconds till our next radio in. It might be our first sampling of data from inside of Jupiter's atmosphere at moving at speeds somewhat close to holy shit. I'm surprised the surface doesn't appear plaid at these speeds. Certainly getting some heating on that heat shield, although it has not translated to any uplate or ablated. Go lower. Quiet, you. I did, but I don't think I got any data back from those little probes. The batteries were dead. And no lost speed either. Go lower. Fortune favors the bold, Scorpio. Oh man. The pay dirt. Atmospheric pressure scan. We'll keep, because we don't have a connection. We got to keep all of it. 360 Atmo analysis. Photographs taken. That's another 300. All we have to do is get to the other side to transmit this home. We're in such good shape for science points. Temp scan. Upper atmosphere. That's awesome. There's another biome below it. A lot of duplicates, though. We'll deal with that in a bit. Science, Ranger Corps, transfer. Okay, and those are the duplicates that will radio back first thing. Just making sure we're covering all of our bases here. Film return, we need that one. Excellent. All data logged. And we're clear of the atmosphere. That was a crappy experiment. Oh, we can't light the engine because stupid me turned it on when we don't have the fuel active. Yeah, flame out, no propellants. So F5, we're going to F5, F9, and then light our engine because that has to be a thing. And it'll take us like 2 hours to ditch the heat shield. Fastest you've ever seen an RSSRO. Really? That's this Atmo flight record? Maybe? I mean, I wouldn't really call it flight. It was just kind of like a very gentle peck on the cheek. Capture is easy, circularizing is rough. Oh, we have no intention of circularizing this thing. None. 0. Alright, please don't crash. Please don't crash. Please don't crash. Thank goodness. Here we go. Alright, well, let's get aimed right at the retrograde vector. Please and thank you. Ignition. And so with a lot of the data collected and figuring out that if we want to actually test Aero braking at Jupiter, we need to be considerably lower, but we were able to glean some absolutely fantastic high-value science. It's just a matter of getting around to the correct side of the planet so that we can radio some of this stuff in. Of course, the propulsive capture kind of marks a little bit of a failure. The ultimate goal of this mission was to actually see what kind of DV we'd be looking at for a return leg from Jupiter to Earth, although we'll test the viability of that after we've gathered as much data as I think we can, and we certainly are aiming for a successful deployment of both of these atmospheric probes, if at all possible. That really is with the return leg of this mission was why we went for a more equatorial flight path instead of a polar one, although a polar flight path would have garnered much greater science returns because we possibly could have scraped a different biome or two. Just loosely based on the way the biomes at Jupiter are set up. We probably still would have been in the atmosphere across the equatorial bands, but there are northern and southern there also that we likely could have gotten some data from. But this thing is testing more than just a few variables. We wanted to kind of limit some of that as much as we could, and as we get clear around Jupiter, we can go ahead and start transmitting in some of our held data here for what turns out to be a very profitable first pass. So so far this mission has been a a pretty good success. We did prove that you can pass through Jupiter's atmosphere without too much ill effects. We did see heating on the heat shield, but not too much ablating on the heat shield. So now the next step for this mission will be to reposition itself into a higher orbit after deploying one of our hamsters that will scoop down through the atmosphere. It will probably die a fiery death on its way, but we just need to make sure that we can establish a comm link between our deployable hamster probe and this mothership here that can relay that science back to Earth before the little probe guy succumbs to the intense heat and pressure of flying around at Jupiter. We'll assess the viability of returning the top portion of the spacecraft back to Earth at a later time, but for right now this mission is on a pretty good track. So we'll get our alarms set up and then come back to this thing at periapsis. So that's going to do it for part 1 of our 3-year Kerb-A-Versery stream. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it, and I will see all of you in the next one. So until then, see you later.